This offseason has finally come to an end. Scott Boras held us hostage for 4 long months, but it's finally over. This was one of the slowest offseasons in recent memory unless you're a Dodgers fan, and I figured I'd go over some of the teams that impressed me and some of the teams I wish had done more. Let me know who you think the biggest winners and losers of the offseason were down in the comments below, and let's hop right into the video. It's no secret that the Dodgers are this offseason's biggest winners. They of course won the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, signing the 2-time MVP winner to a $700 million contract, which probably could have won them the offseason in itself. But they also signed Yoshinobu Yamamoto from Japan, who's going to be a favorite to win Rookie of the Year this year. They also traded for Tyler Glasnow and Manuel Margot from the Rays, and they also signed Teoscar Hernandez. Ohtani obviously isn't going to pitch this season due to Tommy John, but he's still going to make a big impact on that lineup alongside Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. And between him and Yamamoto being signed, they're going to be bringing in boatloads of money and exposure from Japan. Glasnow, of course, is a Cy Young caliber pitcher when healthy and makes that starting rotation look terrifying. And Teoscar is a solid defender in the outfield who has a lot of pop in his bat, while Margot is just a solid depth piece. Also, I forgot to mention, but they also re-signed Kershaw to a 2-year deal. He's not going to pitch until around July, more than likely, but his return will come just in time to help finish out their season with a strong playoff push. Another big winner of the offseason also comes from the NL West, and that's the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks made it to the World Series last season and swept the Dodgers in the first round of the playoffs. But by the looks of it, they were not satisfied finishing as runner-up in the World Series. They added another top-tier pitcher to their rotation in Eduardo Rodriguez. They re-signed Lourdes Gurriel Jr., and they also added a couple of guys who have a lot of pop in their bat in Eugenio Suarez, Jock Peterson, and Randall Grichuk. Erod, of course, is coming off the best season of his career with the Tigers, and is going to slide into that rotation as a great 2 or 3 starter alongside Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen. And he has some postseason experience, unlike a lot of the guys that they had pitching in the playoffs last season. Gurriel was a solid bat in their lineup last season, and he's not a bad defender out there in left field either. Jock adds a ton of pop to the lineup. Is he going to strike out a lot? Yes. But is he going to walk out a lot and drive in a ton of runs via the long ball? Also yes. And Suarez and Grichuk are solid platoon guys that I think are definitely going to contribute a good amount this year. Staying out west, the Padres came out of the offseason as one of the biggest losers. They let Josh Hader walk to the Astros, Blake Snell is pretty much confirmed to not be returning, and Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha, who were both very big pieces in the rotation last year, left as well. Then to put the cherry on top, they traded away Juan Soto, who they gave up an arm and a leg for a fraction of the price that they got him for in the first place. After what we've come to expect from the Padres and after the moves the other teams in their division made this offseason, it was pretty embarrassing on their end. The team on the receiving end of this year's Juan Soto trade, the New York Yankees, came out on top as one of the offseason's biggest winners. After the disappointment that was last season, they came out trying to add some much needed protection in the lineup for Aaron Judge. They of course added Juan Soto, and with him brought Trent Grisham, who is nice defensively but is a very streaky hitter. They also brought in Alex Verdugo from the Red Sox for next to nothing. Then to bolster their rotation that struggled with injuries to guys like Nestor Cortez and Carlos Rodon last year, they brought in Marcus Stroman. I really like Soto in New York. Not only does he get to benefit from the short porch in right field, but with how often he gets on base, it should provide Judge with a ton of RBI opportunities. Verdugo is what you want in a leadoff hitter. He doesn't strike out or chase, and he gets on base at a decent clip. Plus, they stole him away from a division rival in the Red Sox, which is always a plus. Then Marcus Stroman really feels like a perfect fit for Yankee Stadium. He really avoids barrels and keeps the ball on the ground, which is really going to help to limit runs. Another team that plays in the AL East really lost the offseason, and that's the Toronto Blue Jays. They lost out on Shohei Ohtani and Cody Bellinger, and they're not sure if Matt Chapman is coming back or if he's leaving. And they really just haven't been as active as they needed to be in order to be taken seriously as a contender. Their only moves of the offseason so far have been to add platoon bats and depth pieces. Despite losing Marcus Stroman to the Yankees this offseason, I still feel like the Cubs came out as winners. They made a trade to bring in Yency Almonte and Michael Busch, 2 guys that were considered top prospects in the Dodgers system. They were able to re-sign Cody Bellinger to a 3-year deal, and they managed to bring in Shoto Imanaga and Hector Neris to help their pitching. Almonte and Busch struggled in their time in the bigs last season, but I personally think they still have a lot of upside and are going to be decent contributors to the Cubs down the stretch. Bellinger was obviously great last season, and he provides great defense on top of weirdly hitting well against lefties. Imanaga has looked gross from everything I've seen of him so far, and Neris is going to add some much needed depth to their bullpen. Another Midwest team that I think came out on top this offseason was the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers didn't sign any superstars or anything like that, which they really didn't need to in the first place since they play in such a weak division, but they brought in some nice pieces that complement their up and rising stars very well. They traded for Mark Canha, who doesn't strike out a lot and gets on base at a pretty high clip, and will provide guys like Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green with plenty of RBI opportunities. They also stole Kenta Maeda from the Twins and signed Jack Flaherty to provide good veteran presence to the rotation and are really just low risk, high reward signings. They also signed Andrew Chafin and Shelby Miller to add some much needed depth to their bullpen. And speaking of their young talent, they managed to sign their top hitting prospect Colt Keith to a 6-year extension. They also made one of the more underrated moves of the offseason in my opinion by adding Giro Urshela for only $1.5 million. Do I think the Tigers are going to be World Series contenders by any means? No, but they are sure showing signs of their franchise trending in the right direction for the first time and forever, and are at least making an active effort to be competitive. We're keeping it in the AL Central for the last team of this video, and I think the Royals left this offseason as winners. Like the Tigers, they didn't really sign any superstars other than Bobby Witt, who they signed to a 14-year extension. They just made a lot of solid signings. They brought in Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo, who were both very underrated and coming off of solid seasons with the Padres. They brought in Hunter Renfroe, who is a very solid outfielder, and they also made some very solid additions to their bullpen by bringing in Chris Stratton, Will Smith, and John Schreiber. Like the Tigers, they aren't going to be World Series contenders by any means, but they're definitely going to be making a decent push for their division as long as everyone stays healthy. That's all for today's video, everyone. Make sure to subscribe. I'm on the road to 200 subs. Comment any teams you thought I missed down in the comments. And until next time, peace.